Hello, Sardos and everyone. We are Group 1 and we will be covering Buddhism as a whole and Buddhism in Indonesia. Before we start, on the behalf of my team, I would like to apologize if any of our connection is uh, lost because our connection is currently unstable. Before we start, I would like to introduce myself and my group mates. Starting with me, my name is Salsabila Az-zahra. Hami Seno.
My name is Alya Ajrina Bahirah.
My name is Fahira Nur Aninditya.
My name is Natania Arum.
And my name is Akhmad Zacky Wisnuputra, and that's all the five of us.
Okay, to start, I will be explaining the religion of enlightenment. So Buddhism, often associated with monks and tranquility, is one of the largest and oldest in world history. Despite that, very few people have the precise conception of this religion, especially those outside of Asia. Buddhism started from the tale of a man named Gautama Siddhartha. Gautama Siddhartha is a future Buddha who was born in 480 BC as a prince in modern-day Nepal. Upon his birth, his father, the ruler of Hindu Republic, decided to imprison Siddhartha due to a prophecy that led him to believe he would discard his role as the future ruler. Siddhartha lived in luxury, shielded from all the horrors of the outside world. Uh, However, the prince felt deep satisfaction in his luxurious life, and only at the age of 29 did he first step out of the palace. It is then he found out about sickness and death and ended up spiraling into an existential crisis, questioning the meaning of life uh, when in the end everyone and everything would eventually find its end. On his second trip, he decided to give up all his possession to find eternal peace and the true meaning to life's suffering. And in this journey, he found enlightenment. So enlightenment is basically the ultimate goal of Buddhism. Buddhism came to be the religion of enlightenment as enlightenment became what Buddhism is all about. The image or conception of enlightenment and the practice is correlative. The image or conception of enlightenment and its practice are mutually exclusive. Yeah. So next, my friend sorry, I will be talking about the basic teachings of Buddhism next. So Buddhism is rooted in the Four Noble Truths. The Four Noble Truths is one of the Four Noble Truths. Life is dukkha. Dukkha suggests that while life might not be physically painful, it can still be disappointing and unfulfilling. The second noble truth is that dukkha is caused by desire. Human beings will constantly desire and attract to possession, people, and life itself. The third noble truth is that there is an end to suffering. Buddhism believes that since we as a human being caused our suffering, we can also heal it. Okay. Sorry banget. Kok kayak dari basic teachings. Wait. Okay, I will now be continuing to explain the basic teaching of Buddhism. So, Buddhism is rooted in the Four Noble Truths, which is the first noble truth is that life is dukkha. Dukkha suggests that while life may not be physically painful, it can still be disappointing and unfulfilling. The second noble truth is that dukkha is caused by desire. Human beings will constantly desire and are attached to possession, people, and life itself. In the end, because of this, humans would eventually end up disappointed because because all things end. Furthermore, the cycle goes, people want things they don't have possession of and want things they do have to never change. However, everything is always changing. Even those around us will eventually grow old and pass. It isn't possible to have a permanent relationship in a world that is constantly wavering. Eventually, you would have to face disappointment one way or another. Hence, dukkha is caused by desire because desire fuels suffering. The Buddha taught that the secret to a happy life is to enjoy what you already have without any attachment. The third noble truth is that there's an end to suffering. Buddhism believes that since we as a human being cause our suffering, we can also heal it. While we aren't able to change the things that have happened to us, we are in control of how we respond to them. So the fourth and final noble truth is that the eightfold path is what would lead to the end of suffering. These eightfold paths include, first, the right view, accepting the four noble truths, acknowledging that suffering exists, but by following the Buddha's teaching, there's a way out of it. The second one is the right thought. The Buddha believed that even your worst enemy does not compare to how much how much hurt you can implicate yourself. Hence, it is important to not let negative thoughts such as greed, anxiety, and fear cloud your mind. Instead, fill your thoughts with positive thoughts such as love, kindness, and compassion. The third one is right speech. Other than avoiding negative thoughts, one must also avoid negative words like gossip and lies. This would only cause suffering for ourselves and others. And the fourth one is right action. The Buddha advocate for non-violence. One should strive to have an unending love for all life rather than inflicting harm on others. Anger can be controlled by love, lies by truth, and rudeness by kindness, among other virtues. The Buddha advised his followers to confront evil with good. The fifth path is right livelihood. Avoid jobs that involve death, weapons, slavery, harm of animals and drugs, and any kind of exploitation. But livelihood doesn't necessarily mean occupation. It also includes being a partner, a friend, and a parent. The sixth path is right effort. Right effort builds right thought, entails making an effort to cultivate and welcome positive thoughts while pushing negative ones out of the way. Negative ideas are rooted in hatred, greed, and fear. Positive thoughts can be grown through right effort, leaving no room for negative thoughts. And the seventh path is right mindfulness, focusing just on the present time, being in the present while avoiding judgment or categorization of your experience and resisting the urge to be distracted by other thoughts. And the final one is right concentration, what people recognize as the act of meditation. Using the right concentration, you focus on one single thought as you meditate, as you meditate and focus on whether it's your thoughts or your breathing. And Buddhism also believes in karma. Karma is that generally mean action have consequences. When one commits good or bad action, it causes a change of reaction, which would eventually lead back to the person in this life or the next. Buddhists see karma as a natural law rather than some sort of judgmental system of reward and punishment. Buddhism believes that even though karma affects your current life, it is not destiny. Hence, Buddhism teaches that at every moment, every person is able to and have the right to change and make their life for the better. Karma influences how you will be reborn after death. So, reincarnation. Buddhists believe that we live in a beginningless and endless cycle of birth, suffering, and death called samsara. When the Buddha reached nirvana, he escaped the cycle of reverse. Desire and karma is what push the cycle on and on. Karma traps people in this loop whether they have good or negative karma. Stopping the creation of Karma, sorrow, and desire is the only way to escape this cycle. Achieving them will lead to nirvana or enlightenment for the individual. And so what is nirvana? So in contrast of what people believe, nirvana is not heaven because it is not a place, but rather a state of mind. Nirvana is an escape of the samsara cycle. Nirvana translated means blowing out, meaning that reaching nirvana would mean it is equivalent to blowing out the flames of desire. So that is all for me. Arum will continue the discussion now. Thank you.
So I would like to explain about Buddhism in Indonesia and India. So in Indonesia, Buddhism is the second oldest religion right behind Hinduism. Before these two faiths emerged, people thought that nature possessed supernormal power. Buddhism is the second one oldest faith in Indonesia, simply after Hinduism. Before the appearance of those religions, human beings believed that nature had supernormal energy. And Buddhism in India is a faith founded by Siddhartha Gautama, reside over 2,500 years ago. And Buddhism is considered one of the world's major religions. The next slide. So role of Buddhism as an umbrella for other minority, non-official religions or faiths in Indonesia. There are numerous common virtues for religionists to introduce in theory and practice in the name of religion in order for people to live peaceful and cultural lives. We will only be paving the way for groups to mock and condemn all religions. If we did so, so Buddhism's attitude of tolerance and understanding has persuaded many great thinkers, philosophers, rationalists, free thinkers, and even agnostics to value Buddhism as a peaceful way of life, free of fear and superstitions. Unless as religious people today can work in harmony without discrimination or animosity toward each other, the peace we speak of will be nothing more than a dream. So that's all from me.
Coba deh.
Next, I will be discussing about history of Buddhism in Indonesia. The first point, I mentioned that there is no concrete for the longest time, and up to this date, it is considered hard to pinpoint how Buddhism entered Indonesia, since there is no minimum to no data from that time. It caused mixed opinions from historians. Until this day, there was never an agreement on what actually happened. Some stated that by the proof of inscriptions, or we know as prasasti, that Buddhism has existed since before the 5th century, but was not in the shape of kingdoms. There was a deterioration when the Sriwijaya kingdom experienced its loss, and Mataram, which at that time was filled with Hinduism, continued to reign. But Buddhism didn't perish completely and was still around and living throughout the people. And at 20th century, Buddhism in Indonesia experienced an revival, which we will talk about more later. Some historical relics that we can still see to this date are the infamous Borobudur Temple that you can see the picture on the top. And other temples consist of Mendu Temple, Kalasan Temple, Sewu Temple, etc. Aside from monuments, in the field of literature, we have Sanghyang Kalmahayanikan, Kunjarakarna, and Sutasoma. Next, we will be discussing about Buddhism and kingdoms. Kingdoms, dynasties, and religion goes a long way in Indonesian history. A huge chunk today talking about Buddhism, which is safe to say played a significant role for a long time and had one of the most remarkable influenced Buddhist kingdom to step foot in Nusantara, which was Sriwijaya, located in Sumatra, and was the most influential, especially in the field of maritime trade and waterway in general. Next, we have Mataram Kuno Kingdom, located in Central Java, which originally follows Hindu Shiva, but then altered to Buddhism under the control of King Sailendra Wangsa. Next, we have Kalinga Kingdom, which was also named the first Buddhist kingdom in the north area of Java, or we know as Pantai Utara, and reached its peak under the reign of Queen Sima before falling apart in 782 BC. Lastly, the Great Majapahit Kingdom, which marks the last Hindu-Buddhist kingdom in Nusantara between the 13th till 1st century, which was founded by Raden Wijaya, and its area during its peak covered almost the whole Nusantara. Buddhism hit rock bottom after the fall of Majapahit Kingdom. However, the Majapahit Kingdom, which symbolized the peak of Nusantara civilization at the time, left behind something that continued to exist in the Republic of Indonesia till this day. Through Master Empu Tantular, who introduced the Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, or unity in diversity, ideology which was practiced during the Majapahit era and can still be seen practiced everywhere in our country today. Buddhism during colonialism. Even though the Borobudur Temple was already found back in 1814 by Sir Thomas Stamford Raffles, there was only three religion which was acknowledged, which was Christianity, Catholic, and Muslim. It led to the assumption that Buddhism has perished from the country when it was there all along. Soon appeared the community of Theosophy in Batavia, where people gathered to learn several religions in order to unite, where Buddhism was also included. From here on, more people become Buddhists and will later play a big part of the revival of Buddhism in Indonesia. Aside from that, the Samkawi organization, which dug deeper on Mahayana, Konghucu, and Tao in order to conceive Buddhism, also appeared in Batavia. During the 1920s, a figure named Kui Tekwai launched a magazine called Mustika Dharma that was filled with religion, philosophy, and theosophy, including Buddhism. From that magazine, it was later discovered that there was another organization called Java Buddhist Association, which was a part of International Buddhist Mission. Lastly, in 1934, monk Narada from Ceylon, which is now Sri Lanka, came to Indonesia under the invitation of Kui Tekwai, Insinyur Menggelar Martins, and Josias Pandits. Some of the things that they did was giving sermon and teachings of Buddha Dhamma in Jakarta, West Java, and Central Java, also blessed the planting of Bodhi tree in the Borobudur Temple, helped the establishment of Java Buddhist Association in Bogor and Jakarta, worked together with monks all around Indonesia, and finally inaugurated upasakas and upasikas in places he visited. Lastly, Buddhism in modern Indonesia, starting from 1954 with monk Ajrina Rakita, who was the first monk to be appointed after the fall of Majapahit, also marking the start of Buddhism revival. There were some attempts in hopes of helping further the development of Buddhism at the time, including the making of PUUI, which stands for Persaudaraan Upasaka Upasika Indonesia, the celebration of Waisak at Candi Borobudur at 1956, and the making of Perbudi, Perhimpunan Buddhis Indonesia, at 1958. Moving forward to 1974, where monk Ajrina Rakita from before led the Sangha Luhur Indonesia, which originated from Mahasangha Indonesia and Sangha Indonesia. In the upcoming year of 1987, there was a single organization that gathered everyone together called GUPSI, which stands for Gabungan Umat Buddha Seluruh Indonesia. According to the data provided by the government through the population census, at the year 1990, more than 1% of the total population in Indonesia was Buddhist, approximately 1.8 million people in numbers. It is stated that they mostly live in Jakarta, but can also be found in Riau, North Sumatra, and West Kalimantan. But those numbers are also stated that it wasn't 100% Buddhist, since Konghucu and Taoism wasn't acknowledged as an official religion, which made them identified as a Buddhist. The newest data from Dukcapil shows that by June of 2021, there's 2.04 million Buddhists in Indonesia, or 0.75% from the total population.
Thank you, Arum. Now it's my time to present to you about the conception of one God in Indonesian Buddhism to comply with Indonesian religious regulation and political demand. Next slide, please. First, we're gonna talk about Pancasila, Buddhism, and their relationships. Next slide. On this point, there are three main things we're gonna talk about. First one is what is Pancasila and how does it refer to religious regulations? And then how does it affect Buddhism in Indonesia? Next slide. What is Pancasila? Pancasila is the main ideology of Indonesia. It's our national principle and the legal basis of Indonesia. Next slide. How does it refer to religious regulations? Pancasila mentions religion through its first pillar, Ketuhanan yang Maha Esa, which means belief in the one and only God. Next slide. How does it affect Buddhism in Indonesia? The point is, we're going to talk about non-theistic concept in Buddhism. Firstly, Buddhism does not worship a single entity, rather believing that life is suffering or dukkha, and they strive for life without suffering. Through a series of good deeds, the Four Noble Truths, a state of enlightenment awakening, is achieved when one no longer has cravings for the worldly needs. This is what's commonly referred to as nirvana. Next slide. So from there, we understand that Buddhism is a non-theistic religion which uh, does not have a single god to represent them. And I'm gonna explain how the state has a favoritism towards the monotheistic religions. Early records regarding religions in Indonesia show that there were only three religions that were acknowledged by the state and have a certain institution within the Ministry of Religion. They are Islam, Christianity, and Catholicism, all of which are monotheistic religions. Though the history of Hinduism and Buddhism started earlier, they weren't recognized as official religions just yet because the concept of one and only God doesn't seem fair enough for them to be recognized. Various surveys and researchers have shown that Pancasila has indirectly formed religious intolerance for religions whose faith are other than monotheistic after the post-New Order revolution in 1998. Now, where does Buddhism come into play regarding this? Buddhism has existed for millenniums and is one of the first religions that came to Indonesia. Because of its massive followers worldwide, especially in the Asia Pacific region, acknowledgement has never been a problem for Buddhism, even though Buddhism isn't a monotheistic faith. Next slide, please. After that, we're going to talk about Buddhism's journey to becoming an official religion in Indonesia. Next slide. Before we talk about Buddhism's journey, we have to know how early Buddhism is in Nusantara. Though not precise, one of the earliest evidence in Buddhism in Nusantara dates back to the year 400. This was proven by Buddhist inscriptions found in Kutai, Kalimantan. The inscriptions were made by the order of King Mula Warman. It shows that Buddhism has been in Indonesia for over 1600 years. But why isn't it one of the first religions to be legally acknowledged by the state? With a non-theistic belief, becoming an official religion was an easy thing to accomplish. Next slide, please. Now, we're going to talk about Bhikkhu Ashin's role, who has a key role in making Buddhism an officially acknowledged religion in Indonesia. Te Buan An, who later will be known as Bhiksu Ashin, a key figure in Buddhism in Indonesia, he came from the local theosophical community. Bhiksu Ashin argued that there is a God concept in Buddhism, which is an unorthodox take on Buddhism. He reconstructed the perception of which Buddhists previously held. Through this conception, Bhiksu Ashin tries to accommodate the various faiths and practices of Buddhism that already existed in Indonesia. Then, as previously mentioned, to show the commitment of Buddhists to Pancasila, The term Sang Hyang Adi Buddha was created in parallel to the one and only God concept in Pancasila as mentioned in the first pillar of Pancasila, which is Ketuhanan Yang Maha Esa. Next slide, please. And then Buddhism's official acknowledgement, along with Hinduism, Buddhism has only started to be recognized as official religions in 1958 after modifying their theological beliefs in accordance with the first pillar of Pancasila, as mentioned before, altering their previously polytheistic and non-theistic beliefs into monotheistic ones. Next slide, please. In conclusion, Buddhism has been in Indonesia for a long time. To comply with Pancasila and state demands, Indonesian Buddhists, through Bhiksu Ashin, altered their beliefs from non-theistic to monotheistic. They believe in the existence of Sang Hyang Adi Buddha as their god. That's it for me this time. We're going to continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Zacky. And now I'll discuss about social and political roles of Buddhism in Indonesia. First of all, political life is dynamic, or one could say that it is always changing. In fact, changes might happen in the span of a single eye blink. There is no establishment of a political structure in our country until the arrival of Hindu Buddhists. The Indonesian political system is still unstructured. The tribal leader is still seen as a ruler who is separated into several areas. The leadership, which was initially primus inter pares, or the elders, since it was based on the tribe leaders, transformed dramatically to that of the absolute monarchy, or the king's words is everything. Next slide, please. So, in the formation of these governors, there are three terminologies. The first is Mahasamata, which means the leader of the state chosen by the majority of the people. In Indonesia, such as the chairman of the DPR or MPR, who is elected through elections. The second is Katia, who is in charge of protecting land and property, a kind of professional army. And the third is the king. These terms indicate the beginning of Indonesian state in learning about the government system until the establishment of an organized government system to the present day. Indonesian kingdoms include the kingdom of Kutai, Majapahit, Tarumanagara, and others. With his administrative skills centered on moral principles, the king is capable of leading the people. As time passed, the king became more well-known as a national leader. Next slide, please. Move on to the social roles. Buddhism holds that education's primary significance and function in the development of moral character cannot be separated. The Buddha also underlined that education and learning are the means through which all knowledge and experience are achieved. Long before Hindu Buddha arrived in Indonesia, the country's educational system primarily paid attention to religion. Hindu Buddhists also arrived and provided the foundation for the formation of educational institutions in Indonesia to this day. This is clearly stated in a report from Ising, which illustrates how religious education has advanced in the Sriwijaya kingdom. Not only that, but the Turun Hayang inscriptions mention Sriwijaya as a center of religious education. And that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Aninditya. Next I'm going to discuss is role of Buddhism in religious tourism, a case of Borobudur. Thank you, Aninditya, for your presentation. And the next thing we're going to discuss is role of Buddhism in religious tourism, a case of Borobudur. First, we're going to discuss what is Borobudur. Borobudur is a temple located in Magelang, Central Java, built by the Sailendra dynasty and is the largest Buddhist monument in the world. It was built between 780 AD to 840 AD, and it was built as a place to glorify Buddha and a pilgrimage spot to guide those who visit to enlightenment or nirvana and wisdom. Borobudur was discovered by the British in 1814 under Sir Thomas Stanford Raffles. What is religious tourism? What differs it from the others? Religious tourism is a form of tourism with spiritual/religious purposes. It can be through sightseeing and visitation of religious monuments, artifacts, and many other religious activities. Borobudur attracts not only Buddhists, but tourists from various nations across the world. For Buddhists, the purpose of religious tourism is to foster a spiritual discipline, fulfill a vow, or simply to travel. So honor the Buddha means a lot for Buddhists. Through pilgrimage, Buddhists can express feelings of devotion to the Buddha. Sites like the Borobudur temple may be viewed as holy places or as a destination for Buddhists on a significant spiritual and religious journeys. Next slide, please. Borobudur as a religious tourism destination. For both domestic and foreign visitors, the idea of Borobudur temple as a historic tourism site persists. The Indonesian government has taken the position that the Borobudur temple is a remnant of the former Buddhist monarchy. On May 22, 1953, the Borobudur temple was initially utilized as a place for vacations. Up until this point, the biggest Buddhist temple in the world has always hosted the Vesak celebration on a national scale. The events associated with national ceremonies undoubtedly affect how people perceive the Borobudur temple as a place for religious tourism. Next slide, please. State plans for Borobudur as a religious tourist destination. The Indonesian government has plans for marketing Borobudur as a place of pilgrimage for Buddhists, similar to how Mecca and the Kaaba are for Muslims. Based on a 2015 Tempo.co article, acting Maritime Affairs Minister at the time, Rizal Ramli, said that he would make the Borobudur temple to become the main tourist destination for Buddhists around the world. Next slide, please. In conclusion, Borobudur is a holy place for Buddhism. Though commonly seen only as a place of historic tourism, recent activities have shown that with religious ceremonies held there and the plans of the government to market Borobudur as a pilgrimage site for Buddhists, the image of Borobudur as a place of religious tourism has risen. That's it for me. Thank you.
That concludes our discussion in Buddhism. Again, we would like to say sorry if there's any inconvenience or anything that we said or mentioned that that affected anyone. Thank you for your time and for listening. Group 1, thanks you.
Thank you.
Thank